Hey folks, welcome to Inside Arm Wrestling, the home for all news on arm wrestling, fitness, and strength, sports, as well as competition. Folks, Inside AW, this is our first news podcast, and we got a lot to talk about on our first news reel. Folks, in arm wrestling, it is always a cringy position when you watch someone break his arm. And Larry Wheels recently posted up a video on his YouTube and on his Instagram story. And unfortunately, he looks to be working with a young man doing some sort of training in an aspect of maybe seeing how strong he is, or perhaps maybe Larry was trying to work on his lock. Unfortunately, as you watch the video, and we have the video here for you, Larry allows, unfortunately, this gentleman to get a little bit outside his shoulder. And when he does, it's really 15 pounds of pressure, and the equation is really simple. It's a shame. You never want to see an arm break, but to be honest with you, in reading through some of the comments, I think there's a lot of good information when it comes to arm wrestling that can be taken away from this. And number one is safety matters. You really have to understand when you're dealing with someone who's never arm wrestled before that they're going to, and they have a natural propensity to put themselves into a bad position. And if you're really a student of arm wrestling and you really take, teaching the sport correctly and developing young athletes correctly, the first thing you're going to do is really set some standards in terms of safety before you pull. You even see Devin Lorette weigh in on this with a hashtag of test your frame. And really what that could mean, or what it means to me, is that if you're the more experienced if you're the more experienced arm wrestler, then you really need to test that other athlete's frame to see exactly what they can and can't take before you put them in a bad position. Now, when we practice quite often with new arm wrestlers, no one who has any sort of experience on the table will ever look to beat a young arm wrestler starting out in the first couple of pulls, practices, or so on. As a matter of fact, we really try not to give them much resistance at all, because we understand that tendon and ligament strength really has to develop. There's a lot of sore days that come after their first practice or sets of practice. There's a body adjustment that happens, and when you're dealing with someone that's very brand new and you have any kind of experience, whether you're a year experienced arm wrestler or multi-year, multi-decade arm wrestler, the number one thing that you should do is really allow them to pull on you safely without trying to pull them back across. And if that was done here, and it's hard to tell, I'm not sure who Larry is pulling here. It could be someone that's pulled with him quite often. By the look of the way he's gripping Larry, I don't think that to be the case, but I could be wrong. But Larry should have not pulled back across on this young man. He should have let him work his arm, work it till it was completely exhausted, and then just basically retreat it without pinning his opponent. And I think what happens is it really comes down to understanding teaching versus performance. I think the lesson learned for anybody who watches this video who's an arm wrestler is really, if you have someone that's new and inexperienced, is to first off show them really good, safe pulling exercises, put them in a good, safe position, tell them to get their elbow and their hand inside their shoulder. You could see in this video that this young man, as he's pulling Larry, starts to look away shortly, right before the break. He looks at whoever else is in the video, takes his concentration off of what he's doing, and an accident happens. I know Larry's got to feel bad. I have certainly experienced breaking somebody's wrist in a competition. It's not a good feeling. Unfortunately, it happens, and you never really anticipate it. But there is some value of knowing when you're pulling a pro and pulling an amateur, and the difference in how you are to handle those situations. And unfortunately, this one really put Larry in an awkward situation, and certainly this young man's going to at least have a cast on his forearm, and hopefully no other damage going on there. So we wish him well, and hopefully heals up fast. We do know how strong Larry is, but the rule of thumb is safety first, practice, but remember, you have to continue to go out and work or your life the next day, so always try to arm wrestle on a safe manner. As you're watching this break, put a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think would have been the safer position, how you might work with a young arm wrestler that might be different than others. Love to see your comment on that. Put it under the comment section. That way we can see what you're thinking. Next up, folks, continuing on with Larry Wheels. Larry Wheels hinted for maybe a few months. If you've watched Larry Wheels on Instagram, if you're a fan of his on YouTube, you've seen Larry put out some teasers about him going into a classic physique competition. And up until this week, I think we actually saw some teasers out there that might have said that he was a week away. If we go back into his Instagram here 5 days ago, he's got before prep and during prep on a swipe. Can you see the difference? And you could see that Larry's really tightening up in this video. You could see quite a bit of definition in his upper back. You could see that his lower back is starting to tighten up. He's doing a back double bicep, folks, here. And, when you're a bodybuilder, you typically start drying out. This looks like Larry might be several weeks out of competition. So maybe the teaser on this, folks, was that Larry in himself was trying to maybe actually encourage himself to get back into a competition. If he was to compete, that would have put him on the this coming weekend. This coming weekend had the Ultimate Warrior competition in Anaheim. Also the IFBB Pro Classic Physique competition, sponsored by Redcon and quite a few other sponsors out there. But it looks as if that's not going to be the case. Certainly I haven't seen any sort of updates from Larry that would give me an indication that he might be sneaking into this competition. And at 5 days out, I'm not quite sure his body's where he wants it to be. However, Larry is a phenomenal athlete. He's a phenomenal gentleman. To meet him in person, he's very, very kind. A very big proponent of getting himself out in front of folks. And if you follow his IG story, you will see that on November 3rd and 4th, he's posting up now that he is going to be at the Mr. Olympia in Orlando, Florida. That's November 3rd and 4th. Looks like he is at the PR Sups booth. Doesn't give us very much information on where that booth is going to be. If you've never been to an Olympia, certainly make sure that you're there at the beginning of the day to know the schedules. And the earlier you get to a lot of these superstar booths, the less time you're going to wait to meet them. I could tell you from meeting Larry a couple of times, he'll spend the time with you. It's worth the ticket if you're in Orlando to go see Larry. He's a gentleman of the sport. Whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's strength and fitness training, whether it's arm wrestling, I think Larry would be glad to spend several minutes with you to encourage you and give you some advice on different levels. Next up for us, folks, this is a story that is really a feel-good story. And when I mean feel-good story, everybody likes the underdog. Everybody likes the person who no one had counted on making it, maybe counted them out, who rises to the top and finds themselves in the spotlight. And this is certainly the path of Tyson Bagent. Tyson Bagent, son of arm wrestling great Travis Bagent, for his very first game this weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders, started at quarterback. An amazing story that we'll get into in a second. Had a phenomenal day, 97.2 passing rating, 21 to 29, 162 yards. Not a terrific yardage output, but you know, when you look at totals and you follow football, sometimes yards passing is kind of a misrepresented statistic. Guys that are playing on teams, QBs that are on teams that are continuously coming from behind, that have to throw the ball a lot, will certainly rack up quite a bit of passing yards. However, Tyson took control of this game from a very early start. I was super excited to watch the game in its entirety. He really showed a lot of field generalship there. Kept his composure throughout the game. He worked the sticks. He worked the running game. One of his other rookies, Dante Foreman, had a great game. And not only that, in terms of passing, he threw for his first touchdown, no interceptions. Also had 3 carries for 24 yards, which meant that he was very mobile in the pocket. And let's be honest, folks. Las Vegas has an excellent defense. Maybe some might say that it was a little bit off or played a little bit flat. You know, there were a couple plays there where Max Crosby was just breathing down his throat. And Tyson, super composed, got the ball away, didn't amount for any negative yardage, kept the team moving, kept the tempo moving. And if you listen to a lot of his interviews during the week leading up to it, I can tell you, folks, very well-spoken young man. I've had the pleasure of meeting Tyson several times. An articulate young man, and certainly someone that represents the game, his family, and just people in general very well. His story, folks, great story. Growing up in Martinsburg, West Virginia, I think he was the player of the year for West Virginia out of Martinsburg. But unfortunately, Martinsburg or West Virginia as a whole is not a large fueling pot for pro sports or college sports. And I think that he was overlooked a little bit as a youngster coming out of high school, maybe because of West Virginia and a very small population of high-level sports on a high school level, at least notoriety-wise. I believe he did get some looks at some Division I schools, but ended up choosing Shepherd's University. And what a choice that was. Excelled on all levels through Division II. Became the most prolific touchdown passer as a quarterback in D2 and D1 and D3. All division NCAA leagues. He was with 159 touchdowns. An incredible stat. A stat that probably won't be broken anytime soon. Goes into the draft, high hopes, goes to a bunch of camps, plays in the Senior Bowl, thought his stock was there, and really didn't get a look from a lot of teams. Ended up becoming an undrafted free agent, gets picked up by Chicago, goes out, works his backside off, folks, makes the team. Originally looked like he was going to make the team as the second string, and then they brought Nathan Peterman in as second, and it looked like Tyson was going to remain third string on the practice squad. Turns out they released Nathan Peterman. Tyson becomes number 2. Then they go back out and re-sign Nathan to the practice squad. He becomes number 3. And really, Tyson sat very very quietly and anxiously behind Justin Fields, who unfortunately the week prior ended up hurting his throwing hand, found himself out of this week's game. Sounds like he'll be back for next game, possibly still going to be on the injured reserve. But what a great story. Tyson comes in, first ever start as a pro quarterback in the NFL, gets a high quality win, and really gets the kudos that this young man deserves. And quite frankly, folks, I think the last time we've seen an underdog story on a quarterback end might be back with the Patriots and Drew Bledsoe with his backup Tom Brady. Drew ended up getting hurt. Tom Brady stepped in, and the rest was history. So we definitely wish Tyson Bagent a huge, successful, long career. Proud to have met the man. Proud to have his signed jersey and signed playing card now. But Tyson Bagent is certainly someone that we believe is going to be heard quite a bit going forward in the NFL. Do us a favor, Tyson Bagent, as a quarterback, give us some comments in your in the YouTube section here. Let us know what you think. Do you think that he's going to get the starts for the rest of the season? Do you think that after proving that he can play in the NFL, that Chicago is going to be in a tough position to keep both of these guys on the roster next year? Give us your thoughts on what the best place you think Tyson Bagent's going to be. All right, folks, and our final story of the day comes from a 12-man round robin this past weekend. The Battle on the Ridge 198 North American Invitational featured 12 of the best 198s in the nation right now. You had Craig Tullier, Bob Brown, Robbie Russell. You had Artem out there, Stephen Logsdon, Adam Warzinski, Adam Silvers. You had Dallas Langston and many others in that 12-man round robin. And folks, I don't think that there was much a surprise, as many may have thought. I think maybe Artem was possibly a favorite. Maybe Robbie Russell. Certainly Adam Warzinski is no slouch to the international and world stage as a puller. But Craig Tullier, the man from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Tullier, he went undefeated in this 12-man class. He certainly showed that experience, strength, and experience on the world stage certainly plays out on a huge level. And honestly, folks, anyone that may have thought that Craig Tullier was not the odds favorite going in on this one, I think probably was really mistaken, or maybe lets their own personal opinions get the best of them. But Craig, certainly a super strong individual, has been pulling for decades. He is in no way a stranger to the table, stranger to tournament arm wrestling. He is not a stranger to traveling to go to tournament arm wrestling. So all of the factors that might have created some doubt for others, certainly for Craig Tullier, did not. And he goes into this invitational, folks, and he sweeps it. He takes it 11-0, had an amazing run. And, it was an Ayers sponsored tournament, which, folks, if you don't know what Ayers are, it's a rating system that Corey Miller and I believe Bob Brown put together. And what it has is it takes empirical data of all of your matches, whether they be super matches, tournament matches. Certainly they don't take practice matches, but they take a host of these matches over the last couple of years. They assign a weighted system to it. And what that does entail then is it enables them to give a computer-generated rating that will give you some probability of how someone will do against someone else. And I've seen some statistics with this, folks. Corey and Bob and whoever else is working on this project has certainly come out with a pretty good probability predictor. I've seen them run some statistics on tournaments with their ratings, and they have a higher than 80% probability on their predictions computer generated. So this AERS, Arm Wrestling ELO rating system program that they've developed is certainly something that will be part of the arm wrestling future, especially as we start rating and getting more developed and more expansive within the U.S. and abroad. To find out where the best matchups are, these systems will become even more critical. And Craig Tullier, as a pro, he increased by winning this 141 ELO points. Now, I'm not quite sure where he was originally, and certainly there's always debate as to whom is the top at any one point in their careers or any one point in time. But it's hard to discount the fact that Craig Tullier has been at the top of the 198-209 weight class. There's no doubt that Craig Tullier has been the top of the 198 to 209 weight class divisions for quite some time. And, maturity, strength, power is something that is hard to contend with. The table IQ is one thing. It certainly can give you an advantage if you're not as strong. But when you put strength, you put speed. Craig has got an incredible hit. And you put that together, wrap it up with the maturity of that muscle development, that static strength, that connective tissue, really puts Craig in a class by himself. There are probably some matchups out there that Craig would really like to see. Certainly Brent Rockers in the 209, who will be pulling at the World Series of Arm Wrestling on November 4th, who I believe originally was hoping to see Craig in the 209s. And unfortunately, with Craig's work schedule, he is not going to be able to make it down to the San Diego finals. But I think if you look at maybe the top two 209ers, 198 to 209er weight class out there, I think your two top performers, and certainly everything's always arguable. An opinion is just that. It's one person's view. I think that you would be hard-pressed to say that in North America, Brent Rockers and Craig Tullier aren't the best in that immediate weight area. Certainly hats off to Craig. An amazing run there, 11-0. Certainly excited to see what else comes Craig's way. And hoping that next year Craig gets to make it out to some of the larger tournaments where you have maybe a larger pool, but hard to say a deeper pool. I mean, 12 guys that were there were all top in their class, but certainly the excitement of having Craig in any tournament, no matter what event that is, brings a different level to any promoter's success. And we only wish Craig continued success, and certainly anyone in the arm wrestling community strives to kind of emulate what Craig has done on the table. Well, folks, that does it for our first Inside Arm Wrestling News Report. It's been a pleasure. We are going to try to post twice a week in our YouTube section called Inside Arm Wrestling. And what our hopes are, folks, is this is our precursor to our Inside AW Arm Wrestling news show that we are looking to launch in the middle of 2024. But until then, we are going to start developing news articles, events, report on what's going on in the world of arm wrestling, strength, and fitness, and try to get you all of the top stories so that way you can come and dial into Inside Arm Wrestling and really become up to date with all the stories that are out there. Once again, Greg Sharp signing off. Really appreciate it. Hope you have an amazing night. Folks, if you like these stories and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our page. Also hit the notification bell underneath the video so that way you're notified every time a new video comes out. And if you're on social media, specifically Instagram, go to the World Series of Arm Wrestling Instagram page. Please follow it. We'll try to follow you back, but it'll keep you up to date with all of the news and events in the world of arm wrestling.